This holiday was principally to visit the Hebrides, islands off the west coast of Scotland renowned for their rugged beauty and abundant wildlife, especially the seabird colonies during the nesting season. But we hadn't visited Glasgow before, so we spent the weekend there before leaving on Monday morning to join our ship, the Hebridean Sky, on the west coast of Scotland at Oban, the gateway to the Isles. Top tip for Glasgow? The Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum. We spent most of Sunday there. On Monday morning, we left by coach for Oban, passing along Loch Lomond and stopping at Inverary on the way. We joined the ship mid-afternoon, and after settling in, getting our briefing for the morrow, we settled down for dinner and the opportunity to get to know our fellow travellers. The weather was excellent and the forecast for the week was looking good. Overnight, we cruised to the southern tip of the Outer Hebrides and arrived at the uninhabited island of Mingulay the following morning, to be greeted by a couple of hundred grey seals. We spent the morning exploring the island before returning for lunch. During lunch, we cruised over to Pabay nearby for another excursion ashore. St Kilda is a remarkable uninhabited archipelago some 50 miles beyond the Outer Hebrides. We dropped anchor off Village Bay on the island of Herta, and the local ranger came aboard for a brief talk on the island before we had the chance to go ashore for a wander. The largest island, Herta, once supported a population of over 200, but the last islanders left in the 1930s. The medieval village has been restored by the National Trust for Scotland and offers a marvellous link with the past. Also, a national nature reserve, St Kilda is one of only 24 UNESCO World Heritage Sites with dual status, reflecting its natural and cultural significance. After lunch, we explored the island of Dore in the Zodiacs, and once we were all back on board Hebridean Sky, we set off to explore the other islands and stacks of the St Kilda archipelago, including Stack Lee and Boré, which rise 170 metres above sea level and are home to 60,000 breeding pairs of northern gannets at this time of year. That's not snow on top of the stacks, it's guano. We took an opportunity here to take a team photo, and that capped off a really memorable day. Overnight, we cruised around the top end of the island of Lewis and woke up at Handa, an island owned by the Scottish Wildlife Trust and located just south of Cape Wrath, the northwestern tip of the Scottish mainland. and it is home to one of the largest seabird colonies in northwestern Europe. Nearly 200,000 birds gather here to breed at this time of year, including guillemots, razorbills, great skewers, kittiwakes, arctic skewers and puffins. We spent the morning cruising the cliffs and the zodiacs, taking in this amazing spectacle. We returned to the ship for lunch, and during lunch we sailed down the coast to Loch Broom and the Summer Isles, where we visited the only inhabited island of Tanera Moor. Here we took a walk to enjoy the stunning views and looking out for sea otters and seals and the prolific bird life which abounds in this area. We also stopped at the unique post office, whose own rare stamps are much sought after by collectors. The following morning found us in Stornoway, the capital of the Hebrides on the island of Lewis. Here we were to do a more traditional touristy thing, a bus tour to see the sights. First we visited the Garananan Black House village, a reconstructed settlement of traditional black houses where people and animals lived in close proximity. These houses were still being used well into the second half of the 20th century and are still available today as holiday lets. Our second stop was the Duncarlaway Pictish Broch, probably dating from the last century BC, i.e. approximately 2,000 years old. It would have served as an occasionally defensible residence for an extended family, complete with accommodation for animals at ground floor level. It would also serve as a visible statement of power and status in the local area. Our final stop was the Clanish Standing Stones, which date from about 3000 BC. There are a total of 32 stones in a circular and avenue design, and their meaning is still not clearly understood. There is an excellent visitor centre nearby for refreshment, as you can see, the weather was a bit dull and cool, more typically Hebridean. We left Stornoway at lunchtime and headed down the Minch, circumnavigating the uninhabited Shiant Islands on the way to a quiet overnight anchorage. So we were on the scene for our next day's activities. Day 5 dawned bright and sunny for our visit to Canna, one of the small islands of the Inner Hebrides owned by the National Trust for Scotland.
It was the island across, the stepping stone to the outer isles, to the Uists for the class.
We explored the island on foot with an excellent guide from the National Trust. The island once supported 4 communities and is still actively farmed, and is a popular summer destination for those wishing to escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life. During lunch we cruised down the Minch, around Rum to Muck. Muck is a privately owned island, but we were free to wander, so we walked around to the north shore overlooking Rum and back across the hills. The island is actively farmed and, as with many of the other islands, is routinely served by Calmac ferries. Day 5, coincidentally a Sunday, saw us disembarking at Ballymore on Iona. Iona has been occupied for thousands of years and has been a place of pilgrimage and Christian worship for several centuries. For it was to this flat Hebridean island that St Columba fled from Ireland in 563 and established a monastery. Here his followers were responsible for the conversion of much of pagan Scotland and northern England, and no less than 62 Scottish kings are buried in the abbey. There's also a nunnery nearby, but that, unfortunately, is in ruins. On returning to the Hebridean sky, one of our fellow travellers managed to get this great picture of the dolphin leaping. Over lunch we cruised to Lunga, past Staffa and Fingal's Cave, made famous by Felix Mendelssohn's Hebridean Overture. That afternoon we went ashore to see these little guys and all their mates. Lunga is one of the Trenish Islands, uninhabited and located between Mull and Tiree, and is home to some of the largest seabird colonies in Western Europe. The puffins especially are very tame, and these islands are popular with the seabirds because they're free of ground-based predators such as foxes and rats, and the sea surrounding is rich in fish, especially sand eels on which many of these birds feed. It was certainly a very memorable visit and something I have wanted to do for a long time. A super end to a great trip.